Hey everybody, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of different deformers really quick. The first one you all have probably already seen Mars's video about, but it is about clusters. And I'll just show you on a stationary object first, the way clusters work. So how it works is based off of a vertex selection or a sub-object selection, so it could also be faces. So if I grab one spot here and hold shift and grow my selection, right, I can create deform cluster, and it creates a single object here that allows me to move it and change all of those vertices that I have selected, right? Um, so actually go ahead and leave that pulled out and I'll show you. Um, we can also paint weights on the affected areas. So I over selected here, and I could go to deform and paint weights and choose cluster, and you'll see now all those vertices that I selected are in white and the parts that I didn't select are in black. And the way I usually like to do this is open up my weight painting here, and then I will just flood all of that to 0, and that way nothing is affected. And then I can move this back up to 1, and I can paint in what I want to be affected, right? So if I just wanted like a little spot for his head to like press into the couch there, I could do that, maybe smooth it a few times, right? And now what I have is this single object that I can animate that will allow me to make little indentions, and I can just put keyframes on this to indent when his head pushes into the couch, right? Um, Now that doesn't mean this is exactly how you want to fix this, but this is really good for anything where you have something blowing through and you want to make it feel like it's making contact, maybe on the corner of this chair. I could select, a bunch of vertices here, shift, grow that, and again do the same thing, and use this to affect where he touches the armchair or something like that. So this is a really nice method if we're exporting out to Alembic and Unreal. But the problem with this is well, not the problem, but in this situation, we currently have this on a stationary object, right? And if this object's moved, it still works, but these clusters stay behind, and we have to animate them offset. And if I were to try to parent those into this hierarchy, I would get double transformation. So I'll show you what I'm talking about on something that is already moving. We'll hide that. Actually, I'll go ahead and delete those two clusters. And I will bring Tim back. So an area where I might want to use this is on his tie. So you can see his tie is blowing through here. Right? I'm going to go to a good start frame. So I'll start on my frame 1, and this is where I'm creating the cluster, is where he is at on frame 1. And so if I go to vertex, and let's say I just select all of his tie, not all, but we'll select a big chunk of his tie here, right? Let me grow that selection a little bit more and create us a deformer there. Um, I can now adjust his tie in the same way I always, with any other deformer, to pull that out of his shirt if it starts to blow through, right? And again, I can still do my weight painting here under paint weights cluster, and maybe I want to do what I've done before where I replace all of this with none, and then I can just paint in the parts that I want to be affected. Tumble around here a little bit better where I can see the back side of this. Right, and I can have this very nice like deformer on my characters. Tie. Smooth this a dozen or so times, right? And what you'll see now is I can quickly like use that single cluster to pull in and out that tie, and even like if I wanted to even like rotate it a little bit, right? So I have this nice setup for that. Here's the problem: is if I set this to 0, and I'm sure you all see where the problem is going to come in. is once this starts moving, it's harder to control, right? So like really the issue I'm having is right here on the last frame. And to make that work, I have to kind of sort of guess a little bit about how this is going to affect it and have to kind of move it around. This would work better if the cluster followed Tim, right? But there is an issue with that as well. So let's go ahead and zero that back out and go ahead and put that back on our start frame where we created it. So if I just parent constrained it to this control here, right? Constrain parent. So what you need to recognize is that the deformation is happening because of the values on the translates and rotates of this tie, right? So the tie is being affected both by the skinning of Tim's body and now that cluster. So now when it starts moving, you're going to see what we call double transformations, right? The tie is moving both because of the joints that moved it and that cluster is also moving it, right? So the way we would have to fix this, or the best way to fix this, is to not actually constrain directly to the cluster. So what we would do for this process is select the cluster and hit Control G to group it to itself, right? And so now that gives us a parent over top of the cluster to constrain to. So if I select this and select the group, and then I constrain it, right? So now, no matter where the character moves, right, the cluster itself still has these zeros here. But you'll see we're still getting double transformation. There's one more button we have to click. If we go to the cluster itself, under Attribute Editor and Cluster Attributes, if I set this to relative, now we basically just have this thing that will follow our character, and at any point that we have some blow through on the cluster, I can still just edit that out, right? So this is a really handy way of fixing any of those things that are messing up on the rig, or just things that you want to add a little bit of additional motion to, right? If I wanted to actually animate this tie swinging, I could do that. Right? Yeah, hopefully that helps, and I will talk to you soon.